Welcome everyone, back to your weekly weather updates, and this afternoon we'll have a look at the latest GFS, GEM, Ecmwf, GFS ensembles, and then we'll also have a look at the GFS precipitation charts. We had a very warm day today, 24 degrees has been reached in many sort of southern central areas, peaking in sort of the London area and sort of Midlands, widely above 20 degrees, but it's going to be turning much colder as we see a polar plunge towards this weekend. Do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you do like and subscribe, as it really does help me out. But currently we're having a look at the GFS 6Z, and you can see this Euro high pulling up those southerly winds. Generally quite warm air, nothing exceptionally hot, but because we've had clear skies, light winds, it's allowed the temperatures to climb that extra few degrees, and we've seen the warmest March temperature for about 50 years in some spots, so it's been a very warm day. Past of northwest Scotland, though, we've had weather fronts strung out, as we've seen this collision between this colder air mass over Iceland and the warmer air mass in England. It means that we've had a lot of rain, and it's been quite miserable there, and we still have a yellow warning in force for rain. It is generally over the hills where we can see the most amount of rain, but still, if you are in the northwest part of Scotland, it's going to be pretty miserable conditions out there for the next 24 hours. If we run through this chart, you can see we still have quite a warm day, especially in the south on Wednesday. We could see again maybe 24, 25 degrees. But you can see colder air coming around the area of high pressure as high pressure moves further northwards, coming into Scotland, and it's going to allow much colder air. Highs of only maybe 6-7 degrees in Scotland, whereas 25 degrees is possible in southern England. You can see with that cold air mass, there's wintry showers that start to come with that. Now, there is a weather front, a cold front sinking southwards, but it's within high pressure, so getting squeezed out, and there's going to be a period of cloud that moves southwards through the country, which is going to introduce that colder air. Now, the colder air is very much modified as it gets towards southern England and the rest of the UK, and you can see generally it's just maybe 5 degrees colder than the air we have right now, meaning highs are going to be suppressed around 14, 15 degrees. For the next few days, so Thursday, Friday, into Saturday. And if we move through into Saturday, you can see we're still under high pressure, but you can see that polar plunge gathering towards Iceland. Look at the upper air, the pressure patterns. You can see high pressure generally over the top of the country, so it's going to be very dry, probably the potential for overnight frosts. But nothing too substantial at this stage. Again, that will be very localised, but we do see this northerly wind take hold. By Sunday evening, it's pretty much engulfing the whole country, and we see that -10 line move through the whole country on this current GFS run, which would allow wintry showers for pretty much anywhere. Now, falling snow is quite unlikely in this sort of scenario. Settling snow, most likely over hills and mountains and during the night time. In the sun is very strong, high UV levels. We're getting medium UV levels at this time of year. You can get sunburn in the sun this time of year. So any snow on the ground will rapidly melt in the sunshine. So any chance of you seeing any falling snow is quite high, mostly during the night, but in the day maybe growlpool, hail, and potentially even snow in some heavier showers. But for settling snow, it's quite unlikely that we're going to see any too much disruption from that, especially during the daytime. But as we run through, we maintain this colder air mass. Again, it does get heavily modified as it moves southwards, it gets warmed up by the sun. But you see low pressure tries to sink its way southwards there. You see a little feature moving across southeastern parts. That could bring enhanced precipitation. If that falls overnight, we could see some quite heavy snow with that, where we could see accumulations. Now, it will be only temporary as it's overnight, but it's really one to watch, as any snow that does fall overnight is likely to settle, especially on grassy surfaces and given the heavier precipitation. If we continue to run through this current GFS run, you can see we generally keep this sort of northerly or northwesterly wind flow, and we see more cold polar maritime air spread across the country. So on this current GFS run, although the very cold air does diminish over the next, after probably middle of next week, we're maintaining reasonably cool on the north side of the jet stream, meaning Generally, it's going to be quite cool. Daytime highs around or below average, maybe only 10, 11, 12 degrees. Feeling a little bit more pleasant, the sunshine, but there'll be a lot of showers coming in that quite cold and convective air mass. So, very interesting coming up. We've had this brief little heat wave in the last few days, and it's looking like it's going to go much colder and remaining fairly cold, and we'll see that reflected on the ensembles towards the end of the video. Now, if we look at the GM run, see if that's supporting the GFS. Again, very similar pattern over the next few days. And then we head towards Sunday, Easter Sunday, and we see that blast of northerly winds. And the -10 line doesn't quite get through the whole country on this current GM run, but generally gets through most of Scotland and northern England, but around -7, -8. So a couple of degrees warmer on the GM run, but still going to feel very cold. And high pressure does sink back across the country before we have that area of low pressure to the southeast, again more developed on this GM run, so that could potentially give some significant snowfall with that, and that'll be interesting to see what happens with that. And we might have a look at that with the precipitation charts at the end of the video. But yeah, beyond that, we maintain a northerly airflow. Again, because it's into March, it's not going to be brutally cold unless we do see these low pressures plunge back southwards again, as generally northerly airflow this time of year gives us cool conditions, but nothing too cold, as the air to our north is getting warmer and warmer by the day. So now, if we have a look at the Ecmwf, you can see again very similar patterns to both the GM and the GFS. And as we run through, high pressure sits to our north, and we see those low pressure sink southwards, bringing cold air within it, but the cold air plunges a bit further westwards, so we're more wrapped within low pressure, which sat towards our east on the other runs, but this means there'll be more precipitation around, but temperatures won't be quite as low. So this may give more significant snow over hills and mountains, but for lower lying areas, probably more likely just to be quite cool, cold, sleety rain with this sort of scenario. And probably will be more convective, so more hail showers and more maybe sleet or snow showers with this, but it won't be quite as cold. It'll be maybe a couple of degrees warmer. So it'll be interesting to see with this. This definitely gives more precipitation, the higher chance of significant snow over hills. But for lower lying areas, it means there's less likely a chance of overnight frosts, as the winds will be picking up and will be mixing the air. So it'll be very interesting to see which one prevails and where that northerly plunge does come. Beyond that, we maintain a very generally quite northerly airflow. Again, if this was in January, we would be seeing a lot of snow with this, as the air would be maybe 3 or 4 degrees colder. So while we are sitting under -1, -2 degrees, it would be -4, -5, -6 degrees, which would be cold enough for widespread snow in January. But yeah, generally staying quite cold, and then we're seeing that on all these runs. It's looking like it's going to remain cold, and that gets reflected on the GFS ensembles. Now, West Central's having some issues with the GFS ensembles. I don't know what's happening with it, but it says here this is the 16Z, but this is the midnight run from last night, so it's a little bit out of date by about, we'd preferably be looking at the 6Z run, so it's one run out of date, but it does generally give the pattern we're looking at. Warm quite now, we get those cold fronts come through to around average, and then we get that very big drop off, maybe 15 degrees at 850 HPA within 6 hours, and then we get very cold around -10, and it slowly does increase again to around average, but it does take a good week or so to do it, so remaining fairly cold and below average for a good week. And then, even in the long run, no real signs we're going very warm. And there's even quite a few ensemble members going even quite cold again. And really, only 1 or 2 ensemble members going back to the warmth we're having right now. So it does look like we're going to be starting very cold in April, and the middle of April is likely to, first third into even the middle third is looking quite cold. We're not going to see the return of any major warmth maybe until beyond the 14th, 15th of April, so we could be setting up a very cold anomaly within April. I wouldn't say very cold April, as it's not going to be freezing cold throughout, but the anomaly could be 1 or 2 degrees below average if this sort of pattern continues. But knowing our luck, it's much likely as April may start very cold and may end very warm, but it'll be very interesting to see what happens with that. But temperatures are really going to be going up and down over the next week or so. If we have a look at the new snow depth, I see a lot of snow depth spikes, nothing too substantial, so that shows it's going to be very showery and convective. But there's a lot of it, so a lot of spikes, so air is going to be conductive of snow, even in London, and it's likely we are going to see some falling snow, perhaps not settling though. Dew points will be very low, which is going to show you how cold this air mass is. And even this weekend, early this weekend, Friday, Saturday, the dew point's around freezing. So even on the surface, it's not going to be too cold. The dew point and the air mass is reasonably cold in upper airs, which means that we could be seeing still overnight frost, even if it gets to 14, 15 degrees in the day and feels fairly pleasant. But you see, the dew point is hovering around freezing, or just above freezing, even towards the middle of April, showing we're going to remain with the threat of overnight frost and generally quite cool nights and even days. So nothing very warm. It looks like it's on the horizon after the next day or two. So make sure you do take advantage of the warmth today and tomorrow, as it's not looking likely to return for at least 10 days to 2 weeks. So if you are a warm weather lover out there, do make sure you make the most out of the next day, as it is looking like it's going to be going quite cold indeed. If we now have a look at the precipitation charts, we'll start on the GFS run. So we'll look at Saturday first. So you see very dry, and then the shower activity comes into the north with that cold front. Spread southwards could give convective showers, a cold front for most of the country with that. And even some northeasterly wind giving some snow showers, even to northern and eastern areas, and generally quite widespread convective snow showers. Still some rain mixed in with it, but still a decent chance of snow inland and over hills. Heading into midweek, remaining with that snow before weather fronts move in, which will most likely introduce a bit milder air, meaning it's less likely to be snow in low-lying areas, but still some snow over hills. We'll now have a look briefly at the GEM run, because this is going to be very interesting to see what that is showing us. We did see that area of low pressure around the southeast towards in the middle of next week. Be interesting to see what that shows. And you can see cold front moves through, snow on the back edge of it, and again wintry showers moving in from the north and northeast. And as we head through Wednesday, it does look like we're not going to see anything. Oh, this is, unfortunately, this is showing me the 12Z run, which is a bit unfortunate. I don't know why it is showing me that 12Z run. Let's go back to the midnight run. Has it got the midnight run? Yes, here we go, midnight run. So yeah, as we head through cold conditions coming from the north, snow, and then we see that area of low pressure in the southeast, which could give substantial snowfall in the south and southeast. Now again, if this falls overnight, like this current GM run does, you could be waking up to a good few inches of snow, which by mid-afternoon will have melted, but we could be seeing some very late wintry scenes, even into parts of the south, heading into next week. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with that. So very interesting next week to 10 days coming up, and generally quite a cold outlook. So yeah, if you enjoy the warm weather, make sure you cherish the next day. But if you enjoy cold weather, you're in luck, as we're likely to see a return to quite wintry conditions over the next week. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.